Well, it turns out that one of my feeds isn't working. Hi there, Michael Hausum. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the Fix My Realtor live feed. I can't get the Instagram going. Well, that's kind of a bummer. Well, welcome YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. If it was working, it is not. That's a total bummer. I'll have to fix that later. So this live is for people who are thinking about buying a home, selling a home. It's also for those that already have a realtor or think that they're going to be hiring one in the future, or frankly, if they're going to go it alone and don't want to hire one at all. So there are a few things here that I would like to say. And then if anybody here on has a question, you can put it in the comments on YouTube. You can put it in the comments for Facebook as well. And unfortunately, I do not understand the Instagram one. It is just not working. What a total bummer. Anyway, type any questions you have in the comments and I promise that I'll get to them. The basic idea that I want to communicate is this, is that almost everyone, whether they're a buyer or a seller, make costly mistakes during their real estate journey. And the worst thing about these mistakes is that they're unseen and unknown. These are buyers that are paying way more for a house than they should, or sellers who are getting way less for a house than they should. And I frankly see it every single day. So Fix My Realtor is my solution to permanently put a stop to it. So across the country, average home sells for about $400,000. And there can be a swing of $20,000 to $40,000 on that sale. So 5 to 10% of the average purchase price is the swing that we're talking about. Now, if your target price range is different than that, you can do the math. But this is the perspective I want you to be thinking about. A swing for you of at least $20,000 to $40,000 if you don't get it right. So I'm going to give you two real life and real recent examples of the sort of thing that I'm talking about. So the first one is for home sellers, and then the second one is for you home buyers. So I've printed out here, this is a house that I went and saw about a week and a half ago. It's in Costa Mesa. I don't know if you can see the address, 590 Traverse Drive, okay? So a couple of things that I want to point out about this active listing. First of all, I want to just read the description to you. I'm just going to summarize the areas that I underlined. Exceptionally upgraded, boasting beautiful curb appeal, the beautifully remodeled kitchen. The inviting living room is anchored. All three bathrooms have been stylishly upgraded with newer vanities, a defined outdoor entertaining space. And the last section here, don't miss this incredible opportunity to own a turnkey home. So this is what the MLS said. What we found when we got there, I had two clients with me, is first thing, it is an active substance abuse recovery home. And the place was a complete mess. There was crap everywhere, number one. Number two, all of the descriptions about it, the beautifully remodeled and boasting and inviting and stylishly upgraded and incredible opportunity and turnkey, all of those things, at least a dozen or 15 years ago. Where's my printer going? At least 12 or 15 years ago, which was incredible. And then the third thing about it is that all of the pictures that were on the MLS, the furniture that it was showing and the way the house was all set up, that's not what we discovered when we were actually at the house itself. It was astonishing, to the point that I literally picked up my phone, I'm looking at the printout, and are we in the right house? It was unbelievable to me. My clients were so freaked out about the whole thing, we absolutely left. Now, the house, since it's been on the market, there's been a $100,000 price reduction. Absolutely no possible way that they're even going to get close to the $1.3 million that they're asking right now. Now, here's the important point that I want to make about this. I guarantee you that the seller has absolutely no idea that this is going on with their house. Absolutely no idea. The huge disconnect between what is being presented and what is actually being displayed. The second thing about it, because something that comes up a lot is, well, you know what? I'll just hire a really good real estate agent. I will trust them and take care of it. So I'm not going to mention her name, but the listing agent is one of the top 10 agents in all of Orange County. Not top 10%, top 10, meaning there are two handfuls of agents, not even handfuls, two fingerfuls of agents across the county that sell more homes than she does. She sold almost 40 homes year to date. By the end of the year, she will sell well over 100 houses, which is astonishing. So I am sure that that seller thought, you know what? I hired this totally pro agent that sells dozens of houses a week, probably at least several dozen houses a month, and I will be totally fine. But they're not. So let me tell you a second story then. So these are the kind of risks that are on the table for you as a potential home seller. The second story. So this is a couple of years ago. I met with these clients. Actually, they were potential clients. I was interviewing to be their agent. And as I had been talking to them, it turns out that they had been actively in the marketplace trying to buy a house, and they were working with, they were trying to work with the listing agents. So that was kind of their strategy is we're not going to hire a buyer's agent. We're going to go straight to the listing agent, which will give us insider access. It'll probably help us save some money, and it'll just be a way better opportunity for us to get a deal and to find the house that we want. Okay. That was their thinking. So they ended up buying a house, and there were some plumbing issues. The home inspection, they ended up canceling that. And then they were meeting with me. So in my consult, I was walking through some of the ingredients that I use for the recipe to buy a house at a pro level. And so we had them pull up the contract that they had on that house they tried to buy. So as we started going through it, buried into the contract, I noticed that the listing agent who so helpfully put it together for them had it arranged that all of the cost allocations for the seller's transaction costs were going to be paid for by the buyer. Every single one: title, escrow, transfer fees, county tax fees, everything, funding fees, wire transfer fees, all of the things that are related to the seller selling their home were going to be paid for by these buyers. Okay. And they got really defensive. Oh, no. He's a really good guy. He was totally helpful. The way he handled the price for all of us, it literally couldn't have been any better. So I showed them and explained to them the implications of the contract that they had signed. And if it wasn't for their cancellation because of the plumbing issues, what would have happened? And what would have happened was about $13,000 of seller costs that in a normal transaction would be the seller's responsibility that they ended up paying for themselves, that they would have paid for themselves. Absolutely blew their mind. And they had no idea that it was even going to happen. It was astonishing. So these are the kinds of circumstances that Fix My Realtor is designed for. And it is totally different than anything that you would expect or anything that you'd have heard of. And here's the positioning that I want you to think about. What if you could get an insurance policy that would keep that $20,000 to $40,000 mistakes that I was talking about at the beginning? What if you could get an insurance policy that would keep that from happening? What if there was a way that you could actually know beforehand if one of these costly mistakes was occurring? So there actually is, and I'm going to prove it to you. Now, I'm guessing that being on here and watching this, that you've probably got a bit of a, well, I'm going to give this guy a few minutes to see what he has to say, or I'm going to bounce. But I ain't buying or signing anything as an attitude, right? Well, I feel the exact same way. So all I ask is that while I'm doing this, you keep an open mind for the next few minutes. So my instinct is what you have been doing, thinking about buying or selling a house, you probably think that you've been doing everything right, or you're at least hoping that you are. And you might be relying on the things that you've heard, what you've seen, if you have an agent, whatever it is that they have told you, right? And you've probably done what most people are doing. You may look online for information, talk to other agents, maybe you've seen a few homes, going on instinct. You may have actually sold or purchased a house before, right? Either way, you're probably assuming that you're generally on the right path, certainly hope that you are, right? And also my guess is that you're probably concerned about the economy, concerned about sky-high interest rates, the possibilities of a real estate crash or something crazy happening either globally or here in the States, right? But the big obvious point, there's probably more money on the line with this real estate transaction that you're contemplating than anything else that you've ever done in your life. It is a huge, big deal. And this is an important point that I don't want you to miss. All of the things that you don't know, all of the mistakes that you could make, the opportunities that you don't recognize, any concerns that you have, these are actually landmines on your real estate journey. The problem with these landmines is that they're actually invisible. You can't see these landmines. They're not loud. They don't explode when you step on them. They're silent. So you've started down this journey to buy or sell a house, thinking everything's going fine, and you're probably already stepping on them. And this should be the most terrifying part of the whole thing. And this is the biggest risk, is that you would never even know that it happened, that you could lose tens of thousands of dollars or more. And it was totally off your radar. A fortune of money lost, and you didn't even know it, okay? Because these landmines, they can be big and multiples, huge ones, tens of thousands of dollars or more. You know, if, as I said earlier, if you're looking at homes around $400,000, that's a $20,000 to $40,000 landmine or series of landmines. If your market is like mine here in Orange County, that's a $50,000 to $100,000 mistake that could be on the table, or maybe even more. That is an enormous amount of money. Have you ever lost that much money before? What could you do with that money if you didn't have to pay a higher price to a seller, or if you could get that money from a home buyer? Retirement accounts, savings accounts, vacation, health expenses, upgrades to the house, whatever it is for you. I definitely think we can agree that it's better that that money stays with you. And then there's the other side of it. It's not just avoiding mistakes. It's not knowing what the opportunities are and where they are and what to look for, and then what to do when you see them. Okay. If there were opportunities, they popped up, you were blind and you kept rolling past through it, right? In real estate, there is no scorecard. Nobody calls you after the fact and says, you know what, I would have taken less money. Or they never would have said, you know what, I would have written a higher offer for you. That would have absolutely never happened, right? And my assertion is this, that unless you are in control of your own journey and directing your own steps properly, then this is the potential result. And this is something you don't want to hear. Unless your real estate journey started 5 seconds before you started watching this, you've probably stepped on one of these landmines, okay? Right here, right now, in your rear view, there are probably exploded landmines, and you don't even see them. Bleeding out of your neck of dollars has probably already started, right? Nowadays, people have more information than they've ever had before, right? Dozens and dozens of hours on YouTube you can spend getting advice, but people have never been less certain about what to actually do with all the information that we have. What are the right steps to take? How do I figure out what is good advice? What is bad advice? What is average advice? What is exceptional advice? Or what is actually harmful advice? How do you cut through the fog? Because it's not that people are careless, right? It's that if they don't have a strategy, if they don't have their own expert knowledge, and if they don't have their own control of their process, that's where they get in trouble. And that's the point that should really bother you, is not actually having control. Biggest financial decision of your life, and you're not actually in control of it. And I see it every single day in my business here in Orange County. These are wonderful people, but they're not in control of their buying or selling process. They're unknowingly making catastrophic mistakes. They're missing opportunities that they should have been able to see, but they just didn't. And that is what I'm on a mission to stop. That's what I'm here to do. And I'm going to show you how to stop this. Excuse me. So whether you have a realtor or not, you should be the one in control of your own journey. So what I'm going to show you is a bridge across all of this that almost nobody knows exists. It is something totally unique and totally different in the marketplace, right? And it's to help not just avoid landmines, because that's half of it. The other half is actually choosing the correct path, where to turn left, where to turn right, strategies and tactics that nobody in your market is using or even knows about. Imagine if you could go on your real estate journey from today forward, knowing where those landmines are so you can avoid them, knowing how to recognize the opportunities and then cash in on them, where to turn and where not to turn. And again, this is for whether or not you have an agent right now or going to be hiring. This applies to all home buyers and sellers, which brings me to my two agendas, right? Number one is to expose you to this new way to think about buying or selling a house that you've never heard of. And then my second agenda is to offer you two different next steps if you would like to learn more. Okay. And the thing I'm going to briefly talk about here, these are the exact same concepts that I have spent over $100,000 on coaches and consultants and advisors to learn over the last 3 decades that I've been in this business. And I use it every single day. It's the same program that my Orange County clients get. They pay me a 3% commission. And on an average home in California, in Orange County, that's about $40,000. Now, historically, there have been 2 ways to go about buying or selling a home. And this is the way everybody, including all of you right now, have always thought about it. The first way, you hire a realtor and hope that they will properly guide you and execute for you. This is most people. The second option is that you'll do it yourself and that you hope that you properly execute for yourself. And usually the do-it-yourselfers, that's usually motivated by either disgust about real estate agents or just trying to save money on commission. Fewer people take this route, all right? The problem is that neither one of these actually solves the real problem. And the real problem is that the real estate business is broken, and people can feel this. Billion-dollar lawsuits all over the country, brokerage buyouts and mergers. There was just another merger announced this past Monday with Remax. purchased by Real. Other thing is that real estate agents are one of the least respected professions in the country. Nobody trusts them. And frankly, sometimes that's rightly so. And over the years, there have been options, right? You've got low cost or discount brokerage that have tried to fix that gap. But that really hasn't moved the needle, and it really hasn't changed the fundamental problem that has broken the system that we're fighting against, frankly. And that is that you are not in control yourself, not knowing how exactly to buy or sell a house like a pro, and then doing it, knowing where those common costly mistakes are and avoiding them, knowing where the opportunities are and taking advantage of them, regardless of the realtor you hire or don't hire. That is why I created Fix My Realtor, something totally new and different. Now, before we go any further into this, you definitely should be asking yourself the question 20 minutes in, who the hell is this guy and why should I listen to you? This is a great question. So hi there, I'm Michael Hausum. I'm a broker in Southern California, focused mostly on Orange County. I got into this real estate business nearly 35 years ago, right out of college. And over the last near decade, I have been a top 2 to 3% agent nationally. So everything I'm going to talk to you about here, this is based on a lot of successful experience. There's no theory or no concepts here. And frankly, it's also the result of difficulties and challenges that I've had as well in the business. In some cases, learning extremely hard and frustrating lessons. And I've got the scars to prove it. And so the summary that I'm going to give you here is the cumulative result of all of this, ups, downs, decades. And as a result of this, it is proven and it works. So a few years ago, I started coaching other agents. And that's focus is to train real estate agents on how to deliver better results for their clients. And then after that, started Fix My Realtor. And so let me quickly tell you how I discovered this. Years ago, I sold a house for a great friend of mine up in Los Angeles. And then he moved out of state and was trying to hunt for a house. And he called me and he was super frustrated. He was frustrated because he kind of didn't know what he was doing other than, well, I hope I find a house I love. And he was also really frustrated with real estate agents. He felt like they were amateurs and basically that they were functioning as Uber drivers with lockboxes, that there was no tactic discussion. There was no strategy discussion. Okay. So he asked me if I would help him despite not being licensed in the state, being out of the area. So we came up with an idea that I would basically be his personal guide and mentor, that I was basically over his shoulder, whispering in his ear, walking him through all the way the process, looking for homes, finding homes, writing an offer, negotiating that offer in escrow, right? All the way through to help him execute. The result of that was actually extraordinary. He got a house for far less than that agent told him was even possible. He saved about 70 grand on an $800,000 house because he was playing a different game. He was putting into practice the things that I showed him and was helping him with, but he was in control of the entire journey. He wasn't relying on anybody else. And that was the goal of it. The goal was that he would take control. And as a result of that, he saved himself $70,000 that he otherwise would have paid to that home seller, and he would have never been aware of it. And it wouldn't have mattered the realtor that he had hired. And that was part of our agenda and goal. So this was how Fix My Realtor started. A third way to help folks get the result they want by controlling their own journey. So And the idea is a workaround for the broken real estate system. Because let's be honest, there's a relative ick factor about real estate agents. I get it, right? Realtors, lawyers, used car salesmen, and politicians, they're all kind of they're all kind of the same animal, right? And some of that is deserved. But the one thing you might not know, because nobody talks about this, 70% of licensed real estate agents across the country sell 5 or fewer houses a year. That's less than a house every other month. They're basically part-timers. Nobody would ever hire a part-time lawyer to represent them in a court case, or a part-time doctor to cut into them to do a surgery, because the risk is too big, right? But every single day, people do that with real estate agents and just kind of figure it'll all come together and be fine, right? And sometimes, and I hear this all the time, people have a real estate agent that they kind of have to use. It's a friend or a family relative or something like that. So those circumstances, they kind of have to pick that agent. So they're kind of stuck with them. And I've even talked to those agents before. Hey, my kids met you at an open house. I got a couple of questions for you. The reality is that the whole process needs to be up to you. You need to be in control, and you need to know how to buy a house or how to sell a house like a pro. So how do you do this? How do you keep that 20 or 40 or 80 or 100 grand in your pocket as a buyer, or to get the buyer to give you that extra money? How do you avoid making those mistakes? How do you know where to turn on your journey? And then how do you do that all within the timeline that you need? So there's basically 3 things that you need to do. There's 3 pro-level activities that most home buyers and home sellers that are going to be your competition, your buyer competition, or your seller competition, or your agent competition. They don't know these 3 things, okay? Firstly, you have to have a system or a process, and that needs to be all laid out and understood before you start. What I see most of the time is that folks just work by feel. They work on a, let's just see what happens kind of basis. And the reality is that is terrible. That's guessing, and that's reacting. Let me give you an example of what a process or a system on a high stakes transaction looks like. Years ago, I had surgery on my shoulder. I showed up at the doctor's office, and this guy had a system. He explained every step along the way. When we were done, I was going to get an x-ray, and then an MRI, and then in the surgery, who's going to do what, when they're going to do it, how they're going to do it, all the way along the process, okay? And obviously for him, it's a process that he just repeats over and over and over, right? And he anticipates that there are going to be things that come up, right? Bone spur here, more rotator cuff damage back there, but they had exactly what they would do when those possibilities came up and a solution for them. So I was totally reassured. I knew that I was going to be in the very best of hands. He was prepared. So I let him cut into my shoulder, right? So it's the exact same thing with houses, whether it is an entry-level condo or a basic mid-level house or a high-end luxury home. Same system, same framework, same process to deliver those same results, okay? You have to have a system that's thought through ahead of time that covers every single step. Before you start walking, once you start walking, once you find the house, once you start to get offers. And then you need to map that system into your timeline. What is your goal end date? When do you want this thing finished? Is that 30, 60, 90, 500 days ago? 500 days from now? And you need to map that in. And then once you do that, then what do you do? How do you actually do it? What are the specific mechanics? What are the strategies? What are the tactics that are essential to help you get through that destination, to control the journey and ensure that you're operating at a pro level? And for the doctor, he had his how, right? He showed me exactly what it was going to be. Look, I've got this new arthroscopic method. This is how it works. This is why it's totally different. This is why it's better than anybody else's. And he showed me exactly what that would look like. And the key to it, it's not just knowing what to do, it's being actually able to do it. So you avoid the costly mistakes. So that brings me to the second thing, right? And that is, when you're thinking this through, you have to understand and identify all of the main challenges that you're going to have to confront and that are going to come up with in front of you on your journey. And these are the unknown things that are going to be happening on the other side of the table, whether it's a buyer for your house or the seller for the one that you're looking for and their agents. And you don't know what the hot buttons are. You don't really know the things that are going to be important to them, the things that they're looking for or not looking for. They're certainly not going to tell you. And quite frankly, they may not even know themselves. The realtor may not even know. And even if they knew, they're not going to explain it to you, okay? Because they're all operating in this same broken system, and they're probably working with the same part-time agents that everybody else is. And it is in this area of the challenges and the unknowns that the range of price lives. And let me illustrate that. Have you ever looked up a home's value on Zillow? Now, whether you agree with the price that they came up with, that's not important. But if you go on to Zillow and you scroll down to the bottom, they're going to have a price range for that house. So at the top, they're going to give you a number, and then there's a range, okay? So if you're buying a house, right, you're going to look at the low end of the range. You need to know that the seller is going to be looking at the top end of that range or maybe above it, okay? If you're a home seller, you need to understand that a buyer is going to be looking at the low end and you're going to want to be at the top end or even above that. So this is the range of opportunity for you. This is where all the dollars are if you're prepared for it so that you can operate like a pro, okay? So what does that look like and what does that mean? Well, you have to have multiple different angles of attack on all of those challenges that are thought through and executed to hit bullseyes for every single one of those targets. And since you don't know which ones are actually going to hit, you have to be prepared to execute on all of them. And the shorthand that I use, and this is the third thing, is you have a recipe. You have a recipe that is designed to address all of these different unknowns. So for the home buyer, my recipe has 6 ingredients. For the home seller, my recipe has 8 ingredients. And with those recipes, it's just like any recipe, right? If you're cooking a meal, any recipe you use, you've got to have the exact ingredients. You've got to have the exact quantities of those ingredients. You've got to use them in the correct sequence, and you cook the whole thing up in the right period of time. And if you miss any of those steps, that's not putting sugar in your cookies, or that's just tripling the amount of flour, and your cookies are going to be awful. Now with cookies, it's not that big a deal. It's a few dollars. You throw it in the trash and you start over, and maybe you wasted a couple of hours. An incorrect recipe or no recipe at all on a real estate journey, now that is enormous. Tens, dozens, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So here's another analogy of the way to think about this recipe in the process of thinking through at the very beginning of your journey. So imagine if I were to spend a bunch of money and buy my wife an extremely expensive piece of jewelry. And then I got a plastic grocery bag, I wadded it up and tossed it at her when I walked into the house. Hey, baby, this is for you. Love you. Threw it. Scenario one. Scenario number two. Imagine I bought a much less expensive gift. But in this case, I waited until the kids went to bed. I lit a few candles in our outside little sitting area. I cracked open a bottle of wine. And then I presented it to her in a beautifully wrapped box that had a card with a long note there explaining all the different things that I loved about her and how I would marry her again in a second. Which of those two would have a better effect? Obvious, right? And it's not because of the gift itself. The second gift wasn't as expensive. It was the positioning. All of the various parts of that second option were just ingredients in a recipe that were positioned just right. The same thing applies for the home buying or the home selling journey. And you need to consider everything ahead of time as positioning, just like that example. And the critical piece is this is work done way in advance, right? Because just like with that analogy with my wife, the buying of the gift or the presenting of the gift was the very last thing I did, right? Everything else was done in advance. One of the most important things you can do to control how the other side of the real estate table, the buyer or the seller and their agent, how they perceive you and what you're trying to do is your positioning, the planning, the strategy, and the execution to get it just right, just like when you're cooking from a recipe. And instead of a happy wife, the results of this recipe is that's the insurance policy for the $20 to $40 to $80 to $100,000 or more than that, depending on your price range. And most home buyers and most home sellers and most agents that you're going to be competing with out in the marketplace or thinking of hiring, they don't do it. So if you would like more on these recipe ingredients, more detail on what they are, how to use them, and when to use them, then I actually have a full workshop for you. Each week, I do a workshop for home buyers and I do a workshop for home sellers. If you go to fixmyrealtor.com, you can see more information. And then there's another resource there at fixmyrealtor.com that may be helpful for you. It's called the Real Estate Readiness Assessment. If you are not 100% confident that you know every step that you should be and should not be taking on your real estate journey, then this assessment can help you identify the areas that you're strong and you're ready. And it will also point out the areas in which you are not strong. It's also on the fixmyrealtor.com homepage as well. So you've got fixmyrealtor.com for the buyer or seller workshop, where I can show you more detail about my home buyer or home seller strategies and those recipes. Or you can also just check your readiness with the Real Estate Readiness Assessment. So let me quickly review. We discussed that the journey is filled with invisible landmines and opportunities that are unseen unless you know what to look for. And you might be bleeding right now because of those landmines. And then we discussed the 2 old ways to go about buying or selling a house, or the third new way, the Fix My Realtor way, that gives you the control and the knowledge to know the right path on this journey, and the importance of a system and a process. And then we have to understand the biggest challenge that we have as buyers, as sellers, the unknowns that we have to figure out what they are and to figure out solutions to address every single one of them. And the way to do that is a recipe with ingredients that are carefully crafted to hit every single one of those bullseyes. And all of this is so that you can control your real estate journey and to elevate you from being average to pro level. So at this point here, there's two ways you can go. You can take, watching this, you can take what I've done and go attempt to do it on your own. And if that were your only option, that would work. You've probably learned some things here that you didn't know before. Or the other option is to learn a little bit more about this third option, the Fix My Realtor option. Go to fixmyrealtor.com, check out the workshop options and the real estate readiness assessment. And I hope to see you there. Let me see if I can pull this. I don't understand why. Next time I'm going to have to figure out the Facebook or the Instagram thing. Sorry about that. I did want to address one thing very quickly here at the conclusion. There are a handful of questions that come up from time to time. And the biggest one is, well, how far in advance should I start thinking about this? And my suggestion is, if you've got an idea of when you'd like this to happen, you should be working on your positioning at least 6 to 8 months in advance. The more prepared you are, the more you're able to function like a pro. And the second most common question I get is, do I really need this? You're talking about this third option as a getting consultant or help. Do I really need that? If I hire a real estate agent, do I really need to know? Can't they just take care of it for me? Sure, they can. Maybe. This guy certainly could have benefited from understanding how to control his real estate journey and what it actually takes to sell a house like a pro. He would have benefited from this, from having that sort of insurance policy. And the buyers that I mentioned, if that plumbing inspection had gone okay, they would have closed escrow, having no idea that they had kicked in $13,000 to the seller's costs. And I see this sort of thing happening. I mean, those are extreme examples, but I see this kind of thing happen every single day on homes that I go into with my buyers' clients and offers and clients that I meet on my own listings. It's why I started this. If you've got any further questions or comments, when this live recording ends, you can still comment below in the comments on YouTube as well. We've got both Facebook and YouTube going here, and I'd be happy to respond to that. You can also have a way to get a hold of me directly at fixmyrealtor.com. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate it.